Nick Nurse hired as the coach of the Philly 76ers. Philly, obviously, when you fire a coach like Doc Rivers and you have a championship level team, you need to make a serious move. They did. Arguably the top candidate on the market. Depends on how you feel about Mike Budenholzer and Monty Williams, but he interviewed with at least 3 teams, Milwaukee, Phoenix, and Philly. And the funny Bontemps, because Nurse has had some interesting playoff back and forth with Joel Embiid over the years, and now they're going to be teammates.
Yeah, I mean, Joel just referred to him during the first round of the playoffs. You know, when Jacques Vaughn was asking for fouls, he referred to Nick Nurse asking for fouls the year before in the first round when the two teams, when the Raptors and Sixers played. Look, I think it's a great hire for Philly. Obviously, I know Nick from Toronto, but you know, like you said, if you're moving on from a coach like Doc Rivers, like Phoenix did, moving on from Monty Williams, like the Bucks did, moving on from Mike Budenholzer, you, in theory, if you have a championship level team, want to bring in an experienced championship level coach. Nick's obviously proven he can win a title. They had a chance to win another one in the bubble. They were in another game 7 with Boston that went right down to the wire in the bubble. If they win that game, maybe they had won the title that year. And I think if you look at where the Sixers are from a talent standpoint, like Nick certainly got an ability to really, you know, boost them. I think that, you know, we'll see what happens with
I was going to say, where are they from a talent standpoint?
Well, we'll see what happens with James Harden this summer, but they've still got Tyrese Maxey. They still have Joel Embiid, the MVP of the league, under contract long term. They've got some salary flexibility potentially going forward. And I will say, if I'm a coach looking at these jobs, I trust the front office and ownership situation in Philly a lot. Josh Harris and David Blitzer are pretty solid, sound owners at this point. They spend money on the team. Daryl Morey is proven over time to get star players and repeatedly get star players. And it's a pretty big market. Like they've got a young guy in Tyrese Maxey who I think has shown he can grow as a player still going forward. Obviously, there's a big question with James Harden, what happens with him. But if he does end up leaving, I suspect that Daryl Morey will find a way to turn that into something, even if it's just a trade exception to do things with. So I think it's, you know, obviously them getting Nick, you know, I think he's a really good coach. The Joel thing will be interesting, but it's just the first of many moves from them this summer to see where they wind up. But, you know,
Daryl's always got a plan.
You can say whatever you want about Daryl. He's always got 17 different plans going at the same time. So they'll be ready for whatever happens this summer. I don't think there's any question about that. And look, if Daryl's obviously got a relationship with Nick, go back to when he was with Rio Grande Valley in the G League. And I think if you were looking at guys who had ties to Daryl in this search, as much as I have a huge amount of respect for Mike D'Antoni, I don't think it would have made a ton of sense for this team to go down the D'Antoni route, given Joel is their best player and given the whole situation with the franchise. I just don't. It did not seem to me to be a thing that made the most sense.
I think D'Antoni could have gotten a lot out of Embiid. I think he would have actually helped Embiid. But I do think that the optics of hiring Mike D'Antoni would have been extremely problematic.
That's more what I mean. That's no knock. I think D'Antoni should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he's an incredible coach. I certainly think he could work with Joel Embiid, but the whole situation
would have been perceived as you're bending over backwards to kiss Harden's butt. You still might lose him type of deal, and that would have been pretty difficult. What do we think was the best job that came open?
I think it was the Philly job
over Milwaukee and over Phoenix,
because you have Joel Embiid signed long term. Giannis is not signed long term in Milwaukee, and I trust obviously, you could certainly say that Devin Booker and KD are the two best players on any of these teams. But again, to go back to what I said before, I know what I'm getting in Daryl Morey and then Josh Harris and David Blitzer. The Phoenix situation is interesting, to say the least, at the moment. And I think, especially with these new rules coming in, it being very difficult for teams to add talent. You know, if I have my choice, I'm taking the MVP of the league that's on a supermax deal, that's locked up with a young point guard that's on the team, and flexibility to go get players later, and a front office and ownership group that I believe is going to be able to get me players and has a track record of getting me players if I'm a coach. So for next season, Milwaukee, I think, is the best job, but who knows where they are after next season. And that's assuming that Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez are both back. We're both free agents. Like, let's see if they're re-signed. If they're not re-signed, then that might be the third of those jobs.
Embiid's 3 more years plus a player option.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.